Let's look at the shoulder and the skeletal and muscular structure there and look at some drawings for help on how to draw and understand the shoulder area. So here's a quick sketch of the shoulder. So when we're talking about the shoulder, we are talking about the clavicles, which are your collarbones there. And on the back, you have your scapula. So the clavicles from the front are your collarbones, and they are about a hand long. So if you take the base of your hand and put it along your clavicle, your middle finger reaches out to about the end of it. And they're useful to think of like an axis line for the shoulders. When we're drawing the figure, the axis of the shoulders is an important thing to get down to help get the gesture down. So I'm leaving the axis line a little darker than I normally would here. You can also get exemptions to this because obviously if you shrug your shoulders hard, they don't go in a straight line like that. But for the most part, it's useful to think of like a sort of like a dumbbell at the shoulders. So again, that's the clavicles. And if we look at the clavicles from above a little bit, it looks kind of like a bow and arrow that Cupid would use. And if we look at the back, we have the scapula. So scapane is Greek for a digging tool. And your scapula is a triangular bone, which you probably could do some gardening with. If you had one around, you could probably dig with it. And it comes down to about the middle of your rib cage and matches roughly with the sternum at the front. Trapezius is the first muscle we'll look at. It's a big muscle. Trapezoid is a four-sided shape. It's kind of like a kite shape on the back, and it originates from the base of your skull all the way down your vertebra to near the bottom of your rib cage and inserts along your scapula and your outer part of your clavicle. Your trapezius has a few parts and it does a few things. It actually helps you pull your scapula back towards each other, helps you shrug your shoulders, and helps you turn your head a little bit as well. So if we look down at the trapezius from the side, we can see on the neck there how it would help you turn your head. Next muscle we'll look at is your deltoid. So a delta is a Greek letter that's a triangle. Your deltoid's a triangular muscle on your shoulder. It has an anterior part, the front, a posterior part, the back, and a middle part, which is DAC for deltoid of the acromion process. That acromion process is that little part you can see on the bottom here of the scapula where your deltoid originates, along with originating on the lateral half of your clavicle. Your deltoid inserts on the outer part of your humerus, and it helps you do a few things. And these so deltoid acromion is a DAC, DP is deltoid posterior, and DA is deltoid anterior, which is the front. So if we look at it from above, you can see here where the deltoid goes from much more clearly. The origin, if you look at it from the top, basically the outside of your shoulder, outer part of the clavicle, and the acromion process of your scapula. Deltoid, like your trapezius, has multiple parts, so it really helps you do a few things. The anterior part helps you raise your arm to the front, the posterior part helps you raise your arm to the back, and the acromion part would help you raise it to the side. So it really has a lot to do with the motion of your upper arm. Next muscle we'll look at is your infraspinatus, which is this large muscle that is in between your trapezius on the left, and your deltoid is to the right of it and a little bit above your lats. And it also goes from your scapula to your humerus up near the top, helps you stabilize your shoulder and pull your shoulders back. It like laterally rotates your arm. So this is a good muscle. If you're rowing, it's going to help you. Next muscle we'll look at is your teres major, which also goes from scapula to humerus, and it kind of does what your infraspinatus does, helps you stabilize your arm and like laterally rotate a little bit. Here are some other views of your teres major. You have a teres minor, but it basically shares form and function with your teres major, so for drawing, we're not going to worry about it that much. So if we look at this from the back, I have already, with the torso video, added in the trapezius, which again goes from back here. This is your occipital bone. Down your spine to about the bottom of your rib cage is the origin. And it inserts like this again is your acromion process of your scapula and a little bit of your clavicle here. So it goes like that. And I have your infraspinatus and teres major here as well, going from scapular to humerus, but that goes underneath your other one, which is your deltoid. So I'll just add that in quick, and we know it goes roughly from where the trapezius inserts down to about here on your humerus. So I'm just going to indicate that with the line direction. Then we'll flip to the back, add a little bit of the trapezius in that we see, add the deltoid, and we also see a little bit of the lats there. Here are a couple of drawings by Michelangelo. So we look at the one on the left, we see he thoroughly understood all the muscular structure we're talking about, and look at that beautiful cross-hatching. If we look at the one on the right, it points up something very specific that happens that's interesting. So if you roll your shoulder forward, your trapezius comes into prominence along with your clavicle and makes sort of a little chevron. And you can see shoulder forward, that little chevron, and shoulder back, it disappears on the drawing on the right. So the drawing on the right can really help you understand that little phenomenon and help you draw it. And another thing I think is really useful to see on the drawing on the right is the unfinished parts. The arm, where he's just loosely placing it in. He starts light and loose. Same with the head. He's just basically making an egg shape, figuring out where the brow line is and the midline of the face. So this drawing was just really intended as a torso study, but he still was mapping those things out. But great to see how he was doing that, because that helps us feel like more like we could do it than the one on the left, where it's completely finished and hard to tell how he was starting. Here's a couple of the drawings. The one on the left is another Michelangelo drawing. The one on the right is a Rubens drawing. Rubens copied Michelangelo and learned a lot from him. Copying is a great way to learn and benefit from the understanding these old masters had of the structure that they were seeing and how they articulated it. So I hope this video was useful, help you understand the shoulder, and that you'll have fun drawing.